The last thing I ever expected to see when I pulled up to my lake cabin after a long drive was a strange man sitting right on my porch swing, just as bold as daylight, sipping iced tea like he owned the place. Shirtless flip-flops, Bluetooth headset, like he'd been doing it every morning for years. For a second, I wondered if I'd lost my mind. But no, there he was, cool as a cucumber. I stepped out of my pickup and called out, "Hey, can I help you?" He didn't even blink, just turned and said, "You must be the neighbor. I'm Travis. This is my place now. Now let me tell you." My blood went so cold I could hear the ice cracking inside me. I walked right up those steps. Didn't care if he was twice my size and said, "No, sir. This is my cabin. Been in my family since 1982. You best get off that swing before we have a problem." And this guy, he just chuckled. Said his mom, the HOA president, had handled the paperwork, said the place was abandoned, and she reassigned it to him. And right then it all clicked. Travis, son of Karen, HOA Karen. The swing he was sitting on, my grandpa built that with his hands. The pines around the porch, I planted those with my dad when I was 12. And now this overgrown surfer was claiming it all like I was a ghost. But I didn't argue. I walked back to my truck, drove 2 blocks to the edge of the HOA office building, pulled out my phone and called for fencing supplies. 3 hours later, I had a delivery truck, 2 helpers, and a vow burning in my chest. If they wanted to play games with my boundaries, I'd show them what real boundaries looked like. That fence went up quick, thick black steel, not just around my cabin, but right down the property line, up the road, and pressed up against the side wall of the HOA office itself. By the time Karen came storming out hollering about her tulip bed, one of the posts had already taken out a row. She screeched, "What do you think you're doing?" I just waved my old blueprints in her face. "I'm fencing in what's mine." The look on her face, priceless. The construction crew kept working, the earth shaking every time they drove a steel spike into the ground. "You'll regret this, Mr. Palmer," she spat. I just watched her walk away and whispered, "No, Karen, you will." But you want to know how this whole mess started? Let me back up a sec. I'm Mark Palmer, born and raised in Columbia Falls, Montana, 55, retired forester, grew up on sawdust and the smell of pine. My dad bought that lake cabin back in '82 with his sawmill savings. Small place, but every inch of it packed with memories. When he passed, the cabin became my escape. 2 years ago, the HOA formed around the lake supposedly to preserve property values. I didn't mind at first. But power in the wrong hands, man, it'll twist everything. Karen Dwyer, the president. Think Botox and bulldozer in one. She enforced rules that didn't exist. Wrote nasty letters for parking violations on your own driveway, and wore blazers to the lake like she was cross-examining the fish. Most folks ignored her, not me. I always waved, smiled, tried to kill her with kindness. Turns out kindness just makes some folks hungrier. Last fall, I had to fly to Oregon. My sister was sick, needed surgery. I was gone 6 months, left the cabin locked, taxes paid, and asked my buddy Old Joe to check in every so often. When I got back, Joe met me at the gas station, nervous as a cat. "Mark, something's up at your place. Saw a young guy moving furniture in. Never rented it out. Never would. So when I saw Travis on my swing, well, you know the rest. I decided if they wanted war, I'd give them a battle they wouldn't forget." Just as my fence was going up, a black SUV pulled up behind my truck. A man in tinted glasses, clipboard in hand, knocked on my window. "You, Mark Palmer." "That's me." He slid a cease and desist order through the glass, claimed I was violating HOA codes. Before I could reply, Travis burst out of the cabin, hammer in hand, yelling, "You can't take this place from me." My mom promised. And right there in front of half the neighborhood, he let it slip. He knew it wasn't his. You could see the guy with the clipboard smirk. That was all I needed. Next morning, 3 HOA board members showed up waving clipboards and barking about obstruction code 4B subsection 12. I pulled out my certified land survey, notarized and approved, showed them the real map, my name, my property stamp 2 weeks ago. They went pale, started threatening court. What they didn't know is I'd already filed a quiet title action months ago. I'd seen the storm in Karen's eyes long before. But when Rick, my old friend and lawyer, dug into the paperwork, he found something uglier, a forged quitclaim deed. My signature copied, but it wasn't my hand. Karen had stolen my home on paper. My pulse was pounding. "You think she's done this before?" Rick just nodded. I'd bet my boots. So I made copies of every document, photo, receipt, and dropped them in every neighbor's mailbox with a note. What would you do if your home was stolen while you were helping family? The next day, the community buzzed like a kicked beehive. Karen was in sweats, screaming at the HOA gate about lies, but the tide was turning. That evening, as I restacked firewood, Travis staggered down the shoreline, bottle in hand, tears on his face. He slumped on the porch swing, muttering, "She said it was a gift, just paperwork." I sat beside him, gave him water. "If you really thought this was yours, you'd have brought your own furniture." He chuckled, bitter but honest. "Fair." I told him he couldn't fix what his mom did, but he could stop playing along. He nodded, eyes red. "I'll testify. I just want to make it right. Sometimes even the enemy needs a lifeline." Next morning, Rick called. Karen had filed a motion to condemn my fence, called it aggressive in design, then slapped me with a restraining order, claimed I'd threatened her. Then the bombshell: she accused the county assessor of taking a bribe. Karen wasn't just desperate, she was dangerous. What she didn't know was I'd already pulled every HOA financial record under public access laws. I found a web of fraud payments to fake companies' forged receipts. But before I could go public, my cabin was broken into. Drawers ransacked, "Get out," or else carved into my pantry wall. And worst, my dad's Weed 2 medals gone. That's when it hit home. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was war. I went to Sheriff Donnelly, old high school buddy. He'd heard from other owners, missing statues, smashed mailboxes, windows left open. "She's picked the wrong guy," I said. The sheriff gave me a flash drive found in Travis's car, labeled in Sharpie, HOA Karen 2021. Back home, I plugged it in, dozens of PDFs, fake payments, shell accounts, fraud clear as day. That Saturday, I called a potluck. 60 neighbors showed up, burgers, deviled eggs, the works. When the sun dipped, I stood up and shared what I'd found. Karen tried to shout me down, but the crowd turned on her. Jeremy, the fisherman, quietest guy in town, stood up. "She stole from us." The dam burst. By the end of the night, we agreed, vote her out, rebuild together. But that night, my boathouse was torched. Fire took the last photo I had of my dad at the dock. Neighbors helped me douse the flames, but nothing could save the memories. That was Karen's last card. But here's the thing, you can't burn what's already planted in people's hearts. Miss Nancy, 82 and sharp as a tack, gave me a photo of my dad grinning by the dock. "Karen can't take that from you," she said. I sent out everything to evidence files, Travis's statement. The neighborhood erupted. Karen filed a countersuit, but Rick just laughed. "She's digging her own grave." More threats came: slashed tires, dead squirrel on the fence, warning notes. But then jackpot, the HOA's own shed behind the office was full of incriminating files, plans to seize more properties, a whole list of local officials on the take. This wasn't just Karen, it was a ring. I took it to Janet, a journalist friend of my late wife. She traced the scam statewide. Karen was a pawn in a bigger land grab scheme. That night, I moved out, set up cameras, and watched. Sure enough, 2 goons tried to torch my cabin, caught red-handed by the sheriff. One was Karen's boyfriend, the other a shady contractor. But the knife that had threatened me gone from the kitchen counter. Someone else was inside. I searched and found a hidden crawl space, stuffed with even more documents, names, forged finds, blueprints of cabins to be stolen next. Janet's report went nationwide. Karen arrested, HOA dissolved. I was invited to join a new council. But just as peace settled, a black SUV rolled into town. State Receiver Mr. Holt sent to restore order. At first, people cheered. But soon his real agenda showed he'd worked for a firm turning lakes into luxury resorts. He started freezing deeds hinting at new developments. I fenced the HOA office and locked him inside his own little kingdom. News vans returned retired forester fences in HOA headquarters. Janet's final report nailed Holt he was on the take too. Governor suspended him that afternoon. 3 weeks later, the fence was still up, but it wasn't a barrier, it was a reminder. We built a new council, tore up the old rule book, made the HOA office a library. My porch swing rebuilt. Travis dropped by with an apology and a check, but I framed it instead. Some debts are about seeing the line, not paying it. If you're stuck under a crooked HOA, remember kindness isn't weakness. Build your fences tall, fight for your roots, and when they come for your home, remind them this is your story, your land. Nobody's taking it again. So, what do you think? Was I right to fight fire with fire? Or does justice sometimes just make a bigger mess? I want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts below because this is far from over in small town America.